Today I'm discussing what I spent on an entire summer traveling through Europe during one of the most expensive years that Europe has seen for prices, or really travel in general. I'm really nervous about this video because I don't like to talk about finances, but I just want this to be really informational for you in case you're having a gap year or you're having a summer off and you want to travel with your spouse in Europe. I can give you some great tips throughout this video. So let's get started. So the whole point of this trip was for me and my husband to travel by DNA. So we took a DNA test and we traveled to all the countries in Europe that came up on that list. So we definitely could have saved a lot more money if we weren't doing like this specific type of trip. If you wanted to travel throughout Europe, there's a lot more cheaper places that you can go. But yeah, that's the background of this story. I'm going to be looking at my laptop a lot because there's a lot of prices and a lot of stuff that I just can't remember at the top of my head. So yeah, let's get started. So the countries we visited were Canada, Iceland, England, Wales, Scotland, Ireland, France, Germany, Czech, and Sweden. So 10 countries total. Of course, Canada is not part of Europe, but I'll get to that later. This video is not really meant to brag. Like I said, I'm really nervous. It's just like an informational purpose for anyone that's wanting to do the same kind of thing. So yeah, don't come with those hate comments now. So a bit of a backstory. I'm a travel agent and I own my own business, but my main job is a travel nurse. So being a travel nurse allows me to take several months off at a time by grouping my contracts during times that I can be off. So I work for 3 months, be off for 3 months, however I want to do it. So that's how I was able to have a full summer off. Now I'm a travel agent and I own my own business. So with that being said, that allowed a lot of perks that I was able to get, but I will get to that later. First off, I want to go over the pre-travel costs. So everything I spent before we actually started traveling. This means items and all that kinds of stuff. So first off, I bought travel insurance. Now usually I wouldn't buy this only because I have travel credit cards that actually have travel insurance into it. So if you spend on a trip using that card, there's a lot of benefits like bag reimbursement if it gets lost, cancellations, all that kind of good stuff. But since this trip was a little different and it was a bit more extensive, I just felt that I needed to buy an extra coverage. I did a lot of research before I decided to do this because travel insurance is very expensive. So me and my husband decided to buy a year plan so it covers all of our trips during the year. So both of us, total for that, cost $518. Like I said, it's expensive. We travel full time, so I felt it's worth it. I'd rather not spend on travel insurance, but better safe than sorry. We also bought 2 carry-on luggages because that's how we were going to travel throughout Europe. We weren't going to bring check-on baggage. So our suitcases we bought with Away, which is a very expensive company, but when you buy your suitcase, it comes with a lifetime coverage, so you literally never have to buy another suitcase again. If your suitcase breaks, you can send it to them and then they'll send you a brand new suitcase back. So I thought it was worth it because we don't have carry-on luggage before now. So 2 carry-on suitcases cost a total of $568. So we're racking up the prices before we even travel, okay? We didn't really need to buy any other clothing items. Really, we had everything we needed. So that was all that we needed to buy before our trip. The way our trip started was a cruise, a transatlantic cruise from Fort Lauderdale to England. So we had to fly there because we live near Houston. So those flights, one way for 2 people, cost $396. Which is pretty expensive. This whole summer was super expensive. This was the summer of 2023. Prices were outrageous, so just keep that in mind. I know probably years on out it's not going to be this expensive as it was this year. We also stayed a few days in Fort Lauderdale before our cruise for 3 nights. That cost $395. Like I said, this is super high. I would never spend this much any other time. And then we also had to get food for those 3 nights, some miscellaneous items over the counter stuff that we had to buy before our cruise. cost $103.69. So total pre-trip, we spent $1,980.69. All right, that's a lot. Like I said, the suitcases were a big splurge, but we're gonna use them for the rest of our lives. And yeah, Fort Lauderdale is just expensive to begin with in the summer, so that's where all that money went. So our cruise portion, this is where my travel agent perk comes in. With Princess Cruises, when you're a new travel agency, like you have to own your own business, you get a free cruise with them. I could pick from like so many different destinations, from 7-day to 30-day. I didn't think I could do a 30-day cruise, so I went right in the middle at 17-day cruise. From Fort Lauderdale, the main part of the cruise was around Iceland, and then we ended up in England. So I technically got that cruise for free, like the room, but you still have to pay taxes and port expenses. So that was very expensive for this cruise because we're going to Iceland, which is very expensive, yada yada, and there was 2 of us. So taxes, fees, port expenses that we had to pay for this cruise was a total, which is more expensive than you think, $971 for 2 people. If you put this in comparison, I would have paid like over $5,000 for this cruise versus just the taxes, fees, and port expenses, so that was a good deal. We also bought a bucket list lifetime excursion. I wanted to do this for several years with Princess Cruises. Usually I don't recommend doing an excursion through the cruise line unless it's like somewhere, it just depends on how far the excursion is from the cruise site. There's a lot of things you should think about before you buy through the cruise because they're much more expensive than like buying a tour off cruise. But this one, it was about an hour from cruise port. It was something that like I really had to do. It's a bucket list item. It's kind of not dangerous, but it's more of a risky activity. And there's only a few companies that offered this excursion. And it was snorkeling at Silfra in Iceland, which is between the 2 tectonic plates, the Eurasian and North American plate. And the water's like 30 degrees and you put on this dry suit. It's a super fun experience. So I spent very much on this. $700 for 2 people. Normally, I would not pay this much for an excursion, but like I said, it was worth it for me. Also, if an excursion is far from the cruise port and you book through the cruise line, they're obligated not to leave you in case your tour runs late. So if it was an hour from cruise port, our tour took so long, and then an hour back, say we got stuck in traffic, the cruise line will not leave you. If you book outside the cruise line, they're just gonna leave you if you're not there on time. So I think in certain circumstances, it's definitely worth it to book with the cruise line. Otherwise, definitely just do your research on that. We went a little bit overboard on onboard spend during the cruise. It was my birthday, and you know, we didn't really spend very much with the cruise, so we're like, okay, this is where we're gonna splurge on this trip. We spent a lot on board. I'm not very proud of it, but you know. So I had to buy the internet for a few days because, like I said, I own my own business, and I realized I had to do some business stuff. So I bought internet for a few days, not the full package, but since I was traveling with them as a travel agent, they gave me 50% off internet, so that was a deal. We bought the spa package, which I totally regret because they made me believe that it was going to be like 50% off or free. I don't even remember. And it didn't end up being that. So me and my husband bought a spa package. Yeah, they got me there. We did some laundry. My husband went to the casino. We got some drinks. So total onboard spend was $1,347. We also bought one more excursion in Iceland that was not with the cruise line. I really, really loved that excursion. Total for that for 2 people was $359. Also some miscellaneous expenses that we didn't spend on board, so like food at ports, any souvenirs. We spent a total of $280. So our total cruise portion, that includes the cruise itself, excursions, on-board spend, port spend, was a total of $3,657. Now that's amazing when you consider that the total just base package of this specific cruise was over $5,000 for 2 people. and all the things that we got to do, I think that was a great deal. So, woohoo! So let's move on to the rest of our trip. When you take off the cruise, we have 2 months left of just land travel throughout Europe. So let's get into it. Most of our trip was ground travel, like I said, so buses, trains. We did have to do a few flights. We stayed at a lot of cheap hotels. We knew we were going to be roughing it during the land portion of our trip. That's why we splurged on the cruise portion. We didn't stay at any hostels except for one, which was more like a guest house. We didn't like share a room with other people. And we didn't eat out a ton. We went to grocery stores and like Tesco's and stuff like that to get food and sandwiches that we could have for our lunches and dinners. So our cruise dropped us off in Southampton, which is in England. It's about an hour away from London. If you didn't know, Southampton is a big cruise port, but about an hour, 45 minutes away is Stonehenge. So we wanted to spend one night in Southampton, go to Stonehenge, and then head off to London, which is about an hour away. Our night in Southampton, including Stonehenge the next day, cost a total of $442.05, and this includes meals. We then went on to London using the train. Before our trip, we bought a Eurail Eurail. So for 2 tickets for Eurail 15-day pass cost a total of $1,196. So that included most of our train travel, so I'm not going to include trains the rest of the trip during this total because we spent it all up front. Our London Airbnb for 5 nights was $1,013, so that's very expensive. I wanted to stay 7 days in London, but we could only do 5 to fit into our budget, and that was actually one of the cheapest Airbnbs that I found, and hotels. So London was very expensive. We did a few tours in London and activities. We went to the Warner Brothers studio tour, the Harry Potter, where they filmed Harry Potter. That was $103, which included the bus ticket there, and we did the potion making experience. So it was like an alcoholic fun potion experience I wanted to do. So that was the splurge, but it was $108. We also saw Harry Potter and the Cursed Child on Broadway, $182. Total for all food, the public transport, which is the tube and the buses, Ubers and other miscellaneous items cost $556. London is expensive. We then went to Bath, England, which is about like an hour by train, and we stayed at a small hotel for 2 nights. I booked this through the Hopper app. That cost $117.45. We also went to the Roman baths and soaked in the Thermae Spa, which is the natural hot springs that they have there. All of that plus food and bath cost $170. So, drum roll, a total for 8 nights in England that included London, Bath, Stonehenge, Southampton, comes out to $1,575.50. You know, not bad. We then moved on to Wales. Love Wales. The first stop was Cardiff. So, funny story, Cardiff is the capital in, when I was researching this trip, I was like, why is Cardiff so expensive? It's so expensive. And I just couldn't wrap my head around it until we traveled to Cardiff. We realized there was a Harry Styles concert. All 3 nights we were in Cardiff, so that jacked the prices up a ton. But what I did, I just couldn't wrap my head around spending that much in Cardiff. So I spent points to buy the hotels in Cardiff. So that was $0 with credit card points. But we did spend, of course, on meals. We did a tour of the Cardiff Castle. Our total time in Cardiff, we spent $75.57. We then went on to Llandudno, which is the coast in northern Wales. This is also where Snowdonia is, kind of in that area. We booked a hotel through the Hopper app again for 3 nights. That cost $208. That's amazing. We also bought a tour of the castles as well as Snowdonia National Park. For 2 people, that tour cost $144. Food and other miscellaneous, $84.79. So wow, our total cost for Wales for 6 nights and a tour and an entrance fee was $512. So almost a week in Wales, and we only spent 500 bucks. Amazing. Okay, and then we crossed back over into England to see a few more cities. We stopped in Liverpool and York. 2 nights in York for a bed and breakfast cost $225.81, plus food and misc in York was $101.13. Liverpool for 2 nights we spent $190. Food and misc $132.58. So wow, our second portion of England, that's 4 nights, cost $649.52. You know what? This portion, not counting London, we spent really good money here. We then, of course, had to go up into Scotland. We stayed in Edinburgh for 3 nights, which was $428.44, plus 1 tour, and we, of course, with food, was a total of $681.92. That's kind of a lot. I don't even remember. Oh yeah, we did like a whiskey tour in Edinburgh. Yeah, that's expensive. Glasgow we stayed 3 nights to begin with. 1 night I used points. Oh yeah, because we split it up. So we spent 2 nights in Glasgow. I spent money. That was $371.49. We did a road trip throughout the Highlands and went back to Glasgow. That last night I spent that on points, so that was free. So only 2 nights cost $371.49. Our road trip, of course, we had to buy a rental car. We used Turo, and we also spent 2 nights throughout the Highlands. So of course this one is more expensive because of the rental car. Total was $1,160.22. I don't regret it. That's my favorite portion of this whole trip, is this road trip through Scotland. So worth it. So total Scotland, 8 nights, we spent $2,219.63. Wow, Scotland is expensive. Woo! Our total so far, what do you think? We're about halfway through, which included our cruise and all of the UK. Total so far is $10,594.66. Okay, let's do the next half. Based on that, I'm sure you can guess what the total is when we're halfway. We then flew from Glasgow, which is Scotland, to Dublin. Dublin is so expensive, I had no idea until I started making this trip. So our flight with Ryanair, which is like the budget airline of Europe, was $181.59. That's 2 tickets one way. Dublin 1 night I spent with points, plus 3 nights at the Spencer Hotel for $518. Food and miscellaneous in Dublin was a total of $192.50. Like I said, every location we probably spent like on a good meal. The rest was like groceries, okay? Galway 3 nights. We spent $613, plus that was for hotels. Plus we did a tour to the Cliffs of Moher. Food and misc cost $232.77. Total for 7 nights in Ireland, $1,728.86, and that included the flight to get there. My dog is thirsty. I don't know if you can hear that. Whew, I'm out of breath. This is a lot of talking. Okay. We then hopped on a flight with Aer Lingus from Dublin to Paris. Aer Lingus is another budget airline based out of Dublin. That total for one way, 2 tickets cost $249.20. We purchased 5 nights in a Paris hotel, and I gotta say, we did not pick very well for our French portion of our hotels because we didn't really like any of them. That's my bad, but I was trying to save money. 5 nights in Paris, $657. A lot cheaper than London, but like our hotel was not good. Our food and miscellaneous, as well as transport throughout Paris, which is expensive. 2 tickets to the Louvre. All of that cost $362.25. We then went on to Rennes. We went to Rennes because it's the capital of the Brittany region. And like I said, this is a DNA tour, and my family is from Rennes. 2 nights in Rennes plus food. The hotel was $142. The food was $94.57. We then went on to St. Malo, which is on the coast of the Brittany region, for 2 nights, as well as food, which we splurged on a dinner here. And miscellaneous items cost $494.97. I loved St. Malo. It was so cool. So total for our France portion of the trip, which included 9 nights. I think that's the most nights we spent on any country, and that includes a flight. Total was $1,999.99. Okay, so from Paris, we were gonna go to Germany by train, but it's a very long journey, so we had to stop in Amsterdam. I used points on this hotel in Amsterdam, so I spent $0 on that, but we had to get food and, the transport with them to get to Amsterdam. Total for that, we also had to get an Uber because we missed our train. We went to the wrong station. Long story. Total for that was $94.82. We made it to Berlin. We spent 5 nights in Berlin. We used all of our credit card points on the hotel in Berlin, so that was free. But food and other transport throughout the city cost $290.63. After Berlin, we went into Czech Republic. I'm going to skip that for now because we're on the Germany portion. We went back into Germany, into Munich. We split our hotels up into 2 portions because with my American Express card, I got $200 off of like a fine hotel. So I was like, well, let's just do the minimum spend we have to get that and then go on to a cheaper hotel. So 3 nights, first of all, with the fine resort hotel discount, cost $421.83. That was like a 5-star hotel. We then moved on. We spent 4 nights at a Holiday Inn. I was able to get those nights for free with points. And then we took a train to Neuschwanstein Castle, which is an amazing castle in Germany. Plus we did beer garden and food. Total for that was $451.08. So my camera cut me off, so it may look a little different than it just did. The total for all of Germany, which I don't understand how we spent this much, because most of our hotels were free with points, cost $1,163.54. Okay, let's talk about our Czech portion. Just a little thought. Czech is actually very cheap, but we had to use a lot of transport in Czech because we didn't want to trust the trains. Czech is more rural. They're not very as advanced as like some of the other countries are when it comes to public transport. So we took a train from Berlin into Prague. We spent 4 nights total in Prague, but 3 nights were more of the sightseeing. 1 night at the end was just transferring between countries. So total for 4 nights was $349.48. We then spent food and miscellaneous, and we bought the beer spa. Oh my gosh, such a great experience, which is so expensive. Total for food and misc and tours, the beer spa, cost $759.31. 300 of that was the beer spa, okay? We then took a Flixbus, because like I said, we didn't want to test the trains. I love Flixbus. So we took that from Prague to Český Krumlov, which was $154.27. That's for like, I don't remember how long it was, but several hour drive in the bus. The Český Hotel for 1 night was $102.60, and our food cost $10.08. Flixbus to Telch was $13.97. That's so cheap. And then our Telch Hotel for 1 night was very expensive because one, it's a very rural town. There was 1 hotel in the whole town, and there was like a festival going on, so we spent $262.97. That was for like almost like Airbnb style, but it was still a hotel. And then our food cost $15. We did a day trip to Kutná Hora. So fun fact, we used this company called Day Trip. Takes you from one city to the next, but along the way you can stop in another city or some kind of tourist attraction, and that was a private car. So total for that cost $308 plus food that day, $37.73. Prague to Munich Flixbus cost $150.21 because a train track broke down. So we lost one day on our a Eurail pass, so we didn't spend the whole 15 days. Oh well. Total for our time in Czech includes all the public transport and the nights. That's 6 nights total, $1,712.23. Last but not least, we flew to Stockholm. We spent a few days in Stockholm. The flight to Stockholm, one way, cost $374. Then we spent 4 nights total in Stockholm. 3 nights in the city center was $330.27. 1 night near the airport, because we had either a late night flight or really early morning. I think it was a late night. $139.92. Plus we did a tour and food. Total for all of Stockholm, Sweden, cost $898.65. Wow. And then our flights from Stockholm to Houston, across the Atlantic, we spent $1,244, plus we had to spend 1 more night in the hotel, plus food. Cost $311.96. Ouch, that one was expensive. So what do you think our total was? Oh my gosh. Grand total for how many nights? I have no idea. 2.5 months, an entire summer in Europe. This includes insurance, suitcases, cruise, really high onboard spend on their cruise, lots of travel throughout 10 total countries. We spent $20,027.89. Wow, is that expensive? Yes. Did we spend our entire life savings? Yes. Was it worth it? Absolutely yes. We crossed off so many bucket list things. Like, I will remember this trip forever. But when you put it into perspective, we're not spending money on apartments back in the US during this time. That could have easily been, if you spent $2,000 a month for apartments, which is cheap in some places, that's $6,000 we would have spent on our time in the US if we spent 3 months in the US instead. Plus food, we're not spending on gas. You know, that adds up really fast. So I think we did pretty good. Could you have done it a lot cheaper? Absolutely. I've just looked up like what a family of 4 did in Europe. Not during this year. Put that into perspective. Probably not during the summer. We spent like $12,000. You could have stayed in hostels. You could have traveled during off season. Not in 2023. You could have done a lot better. You also could have done a lot worse. So I think that's probably about average if you were to do a similar trip like this. Whew. So I hope this was helpful for you if you want to do a similar trip at one time in your life. Just quit your job, do 3 months, and get another job. Like, just do it. It's so worth it. And you'll have memories worth a lifetime.